shady HOA dealings exposed in non-existent HOA by the Raccoon 2. And it has an update. So I bought my house 4.5 years ago from the company that built it. The house I bought was new construction in a neighborhood that had existed for about 8 years. Even now, there are still a few empty lots in the neighborhood. Last year, I received a document in my mailbox, which confused me as it was a handful of pages stapled together. The title on the first page was Restrictive Covenants for Our Neighborhood. After reading through the documents, I was confused, as it was supposedly the covenants for the homeowners association that governed our neighborhood. I immediately contacted the builder of my home asking about an HOA. He had his realtor call me, and she assured me that there was no HOA. And looking at the online website for our county, there is no organization registered with the name of our neighborhood, which would be required of an HOA. So I also talked to one of my neighbors, whose house had also been built by the same builder, and asked if he had found a copy in his mailbox. He had, and I explained that I'd talked to the builder and his realtor and that there was no HOA. He was relieved, as his wife was really angry about thinking that they'd been duped into buying a house in an HOA neighborhood. While we were standing in his front yard talking, another neighbor walked up, and he also said that he'd received a copy, and he knew the person who was distributing them. She was really upset that commercial vehicles were being allowed to park overnight in our neighborhood. There are a couple of work trucks that park in the driveways of a few of our neighbors at night. One of the key things to note is that the document was not mailed to me. Somebody made the copies and then put a copy in my mailbox. No envelope and no postage. I live in the USA, and accessing someone else's mailbox is a crime. So I took the document to a copy store, and I had them make me a couple of copies without removing the original staple from the corner. I then took the original to the local USPS post office. I showed them the document, and they explained how it came into my possession. The clerk behind the counter said I would need to talk to the postmaster, and when he came to the counter, I showed him the document, and I explained about it appearing in my mailbox. He was scowling by the time I finished, and I pointed out the last page, which was a letter complaining about all the people that were violating the number 8 of the covenants, which was a prohibition of parking commercial vehicles on the roads or driveways in the neighborhood, stating that all commercial vehicles must be parked in a closed garage. So the letter also asked for our support in electing the person who had distributed the copies to the HOA board. It contained the name, the address, and the phone number of the person. The postmaster saw that last page, broke out into a really evil grin, and asked if he could have the document. I told him that the document he was looking at was the original that I'd found in my mailbox, and that I had copies for my own files without removing the staple. I also told him that I'd spoken to several of my neighbors, and they had also received copies in their mailboxes. The postmaster thanked me and said that he would be calling the person and explaining to them how many federal laws they'd violated by accessing someone else's mailbox. So my neighbors and I, we are still HOA free. An update. Now another thing to consider is that an HOA is a business and legally has to file certain reports every year to document fees collected and expenses paid, and have a certain number of meetings every year with notifications publicly posted of the meeting dates, the times, and the locations. And hold elections for members of the board, which also requires notifications to be publicly posted. At least that's true in Tennessee where I live. There are stone walls with signs at the entry to the neighborhood. As an example, if the sign says Charles Place, the road I lived on would have been named Charles Road, and the crazy neighbor would then think that there's a Charles Place HOA. The Tennessee Secretary of State's office has a business information search page on their website, and when I search for the first word in the name of our community, it comes up with 3 entries, all of which are a construction company with slightly different names like Charles Construction Incorporated, LLC, and then Incorporated with capital letters, with different ending dates. The 2 that are inactive show the same city as where I live, but the active entry is in a different city about 300 miles away. There are 2 words on the signs at the entrance to the community, and if I search for both words, there are no records found. Also, in the 4.5 years that I've lived here, I've never been asked to pay any HOA dues or fees, nor have I ever received notification of an HOA meeting or HOA election. Based on what was in the letter, my neighbors started this whole mess in order to ban all commercial vehicles from parking on the street or in driveways. In order to start an HOA, a vote has to be taken of all the property owners within the proposed boundaries of the HOA, with a simple majority required. But one of the nice things is that regardless of how the vote goes, an existing property owner can still choose to not join the new HOA and would not be subject to fees or fines or any new rules created by the new HOA. But once the non-member sells their property, then the new buyer would be required to join the HOA. Terrible HOA Karen in neighbor, who is also on the HOA board, is nitpicking on us and threatens to call the police. What do we do? Posted by QS Muta. I recently bought a condo, a second-floor unit, and have been trying to settle in with my family, 2 kids, 12-year-old and 3-year-old. My problem is our 65-plus old neighbor who's also on the board of the HOA. She lives alone with her dog right next door to us. She's been kind of bullying us from day one. Every time she passes by us, she gives this disapproving and demeaning look, which I never understood why. Our downstairs neighbor who came in and introduced themselves told us that she is like that to everyone and warned us to stay away from her. She has been telling us to do a lot of things, like park our car much too far away from the parking line, even though we parked ours much well inside the lines, because she wants more space to open her car doors. We agreed because we wanted to be nice. She keeps telling our kid not to play in the front of the building. This is a gated community and all kids play out in front in the evenings. We agreed. She then said that he should not play behind the building also, which is mostly woods and trees. We agreed to that too. But our 12-year-old, being 12 years old, went some 30 feet into the tree area and sat underneath the trees with his 2 friends and was playing with sticks. This woman comes knocking on our door and yells at me. I said, okay, I will tell my child to not play there. But I got real ticked off when she said, when does school start? Very soon, I suppose. Can't wait for them to go back, in front of my kid. He felt very hurt, and I convinced him, saying that sometimes people can be mean and we should not be bothered by it. Last week, at around 11:30 at night, my husband was sitting in our balcony spray painting a picture frame. She came downstairs to walk her dog, looked up, saw us, and asked what we were doing. My husband said, spray painting. She gave some weird BS reasons as to why we're not allowed to spray paint or switch on our balcony light after 10 p.m. and that there are rules. She also had the management email us the rule book. We read through it and there was nothing relating to balcony lights or spray painting or anything remotely related to it. Yesterday, I was spray painting a footboard in the evening and I finished doing it at around 10:30 at night. She saw me cleaning up and then asked, "Are you painting again?" I said, "Yeah." She replied, "I've told you already not to do that. It's 10:30. I politely and very calmly said, "Hey, I'm only spray painting and it is not disturbing anyone." To which she angrily replied, "There are rules and I'm complaining about you to the police tomorrow," and walked away. I brought in the headboard 30 minutes later after they dried. She does not live directly above or below us, and there's no way she would even know that I was painting if she hadn't looked up into my balcony. There was absolutely no noise except from the very small spraying noise from the rattle can, which I am 200% sure is not audible 10 feet away from where I was painting. We did not make a peep when moving the headboard also. We feel like we're being bossed around by this woman. A few others feel this way too, but they've not openly said it to us, but have implied it. She has lived in this building for over 25 years, and we are only 2 months in. We are Asians and immigrants. Any police complaints against us could affect our visa status. At the same time, I don't want to be walking over eggshells in my own home. I would like to live with self-respect. We just bought this place and moving is not an option. What do I do? This commenter lays down the truth. It's time for you to read, know, and understand every rule in the HOA like the back of your hand. This way, she has no power over you. She assumes that you will comply because she thinks that she knows more. Use the rules to your advantage and don't give her the satisfaction of you breaking even the most minor of rules. Vindictive ex-wife illegally signed application to the local HOA in my name. Posted by Spurred one last time. I'll start this off by saying my ex is vindictive as heck. we've been fully divorced since about right before the pandemic started. We sold the house we shared, and I didn't have to pay her alimony because she cheated and we're in an at-fault state. It was as messy since D-Day. All of the stereotypes. First, the sobbing, and then the trickle truth saying, I love you. It was just one time. Okay, it was 2 years. And then the gaslighting followed by, I'm gonna take you for everything, before packing her crap and walking out. I feel like I never really knew the woman my ex was in all the time we were together. We were married 5 years and together for 7. And in 2 of those 5 married years, she had affairs with 3 other men. The final one being a foreign businessman out of some sort from what I could figure out. Yes, I got tested for STDs and was thankfully negative. Yes, she got pregnant by the final affair partner, and no, I didn't sign the birth certificate because I found out about all the affairs before the baby was born, thanks to a call from the first affair partner. My ex tried to go full scorched earth on me. But since we live in and were married in an at-fault state, she lost. We didn't pay equally into our house, and the equity was divided 70-30. So I got a pretty good cash payout when I sold our marital home to put as a down payment on a different house closer to my job. It's a bit of a downgrade, but suits a single guy in his 30s like me just fine. My ex did show up to my house once, but I refused to let her in. She barked and complained at me that I'd financially ruined her in the divorce. I said that if she was fully willing to do that to me first, and the witch had the audacity to say it should have been my life screwed over and not hers. I laughed so hard and said it was karma. She yelled that she'd sue me for what was rightfully hers. I said if she was going to sue me, then to go ahead and sue me. It'd end up the same way in court because she had nothing but a false sob story. She was the cheater, not me. I'm no angel, but I didn't do anything to her. And then she was the one who ruined our marriage. She then said that she'd tell everyone she could that I abused her, and I said that I'd sue her for defamation if she did. And I was recording our interaction and had those words saved to my phone. She went wide-eyed and her jaw dropped. The look people are calling the surprised Pikachu face was this. Then I asked why she was there, if not to just try and make trouble, because she had a new man in her life that knocked her up. She just huffed at me and said he isn't around much, and she's stuck in a tiny apartment living off his child support till he comes back. It was immature of me, I know, but I did the bit of playing the world's smallest violin. She yelled at me to go screw myself, and then I yelled back that I'd sooner do that than her anytime. She raged at me and then got in her car to leave. I haven't seen her since. There's an HOA in my neighborhood, but I was not legally obligated to join it because the last owner of my house was not a member. I made sure of that through a real estate lawyer as well. The HOA had no grounds to force me to join, and they were not happy about it. The HOA president would show up with forms every week for the first month demanding that I sign them. Then she threatened to take me to court, to which I had to get a cease and desist sent to her from my lawyer to make her stop that. So she started harassing me by looking for any infractions that she possibly could to report me to the city. An inspector came out several times and found nothing wrong. In fact, I offered one of them a burger while grilling, and they graciously accepted. Did I mention the HOA hates barbecues and parties that aren't approved in advance? Well, they do. And I like to grill when the weather's good. And my neighbors actually love me for it because I invite them over. I had the police called on me several times for noise complaints because I was playing music on a Saturday afternoon while having my friends over. The HOA president I caught trespassing once when she was trying to peer into my windows. I called the police, but she denied ever doing it. So I got cameras. She hasn't trespassed since, but I still got repeated passive-aggressive letters saying that my cameras were not an approved addition to my house. Some months ago, I started getting letters for fines in the mail. And when I contacted the HOA, their representative claimed that they had it on record that I joined and needed to pay all the fees effective immediately. I told them that that was not possible. And then they emailed a scanned copy of the forms and they had a signature on them. But it was not mine. It was very similar in some ways, and I recognized right away as being my ex's handwriting. She knew what my signature looked like, but it was a loose imitation at best. I got in touch with a lawyer right away over the forged signature, but the HOA still demanded to go to court, and it took 7 months before that happened. Meanwhile, they were stacking unpaid fines against me weekly, and they were threatening to put a lien on my house. We went to court and the HOA president looked very smug, but my lawyer pointed out how the signature wasn't the same as mine and was very inconsistent in the various forms. I'd never allowed the HOA president in my house, and I never requested the forms. The idiot HOA president actually slammed her palm on the table and said it was still binding. But when pressed where the fraudulent signature came from, she admitted my ex-wife called the HOA and they sent her the forms, then got them back in the mail signed. But then she actually claimed she thought that I'd signed them. The judge looked at her and asked if she was serious, and she confirmed she was. The judge then asked how a woman I was no longer married to, that had never even lived with me in my current residence, was supposed to have any bearing on whether or not I joined her HOA. She went quiet, and I could see the "oh crap" look on her face as the hamster wheels were turning and she seemed to finally mentally put the pieces together. My lawyer then counterclaimed that what the HOA did was blatant fraud and legal actions must be taken. And they were. I countersued the HOA for the emotional distress of the harassment I've gotten since moving in, which I had lots of proof of. That won me about 10 grand after lawyer fees that I decided to put toward my mortgage. The HOA president was removed from her throne. I like to think she was kicking and screaming. She was also slapped with a hefty fine. I've seen her outside a few times, and she always looks at me like I'm the devil. The HOA itself had to pay all of my legal fees too. I wanted to go after my ex for forging my signature, but I can't because not long after she forged my signature on those forms, she apparently left the country to be with her third affair partner. She's somewhere in Europe from what I can see of the final post on her Facebook before she disappeared. So I can't do anything against her unless she ever returns to the US. So that was a wash. I'm not getting letters from the HOA anymore though, and the new president has promised to keep things completely cordial from now on. I still don't feel like I got much of a win in this though. Other than the $10,000 payout, it all felt like a huge waste of time. Interesting comments here. Deleted says, statute of limitations. Even if nothing happens because she's out of the country, get a default judgment since she will not show up to court. That may even block her from re-entry. And Crazy Supervisor says, it won't block her from re-entry, but she will be detained in customs. It will likely force her return as well because she won't be able to renew any visas because countries tend to not want each other's criminals and problems. Gotta love HOAs. Posted by Dragon Rider 1964. My great-grandfather purchased about 3,000 acres of land in Florida in the late 1800s. This land has been in the family ever since, and there's been a family home on the property throughout. Land is zoned as agricultural, and we've raised livestock and farmed various items over the years. Ownership of the land has been passed down over the years, with the oldest getting the house. My father passed in 2000 and left the house to me. Now my mom still lives in the house, and the land was split between 3 siblings equally, about 1,000 acres each. My brother, who lives in California, and sister, living in Texas, quickly sold their lots to a property development company, about the same that I had purchased a neighboring lot, 850 acres, as my own. The development company quickly purchased a lot of land and began building family units, which are 3, 4, and 5 bedroom homes. This company repeatedly made attempts to get me to sell the 1,850 acres that I owned. They fought the county to get land rezoned so that I could not use it as a farm. That failed since I was actively using it and land became zoned as agricultural/residential. In 2015, the development company completed the project and transferred control of the community to an HOA, which was registered in 2016. The meat and potatoes. As soon as the HOA became officially recognized by the county, the board pushed to force me and my family to join. Nope, that is not happening. We have received visits from HOA board members explaining how we are in violation of the rules and how we must pay fines they have imposed. Fines have included livestock and farm animals not allowed, farm equipment left visible, unauthorized structures on site, and we have 2 barns, 3 storage sheds, a detached 3-car garage, and 4 covered feed stations for animals. They also said cars and vehicles not parked in a garage was a fine. The driveway was not properly maintained, unapproved fencing, the house painted the wrong color. They went to house trim color not approved, front door style and color not approved, trees unapproved, lawn unsightly. They kept going and going with mailbox not correct style, mailbox not within community height standards. Fines started at $50 up to $1,500 and incurred massive late fees. And the biggest was failure to sign the HOA membership form. Now, I am an attorney, however, I'm not versed in property law, so I hired someone who is. And she has been having fun. Cease and desist orders at least once a year, several trespass orders against board members and the HOA itself, at least 3 court cases to get fines and property liens removed. As you can imagine, this has been trying. In January 2019, I filed plans and was approved to build a 6-foot concrete and stucco wall running the length of my property. This wall will be 5 feet onto my side of the property line and will be maintained by me. The plans were on file and the HOA had time to contest them. In October 2019, work began. The side of the wall was leveled, and this brought about the HOA to file numerous complaints for noise and unapproved improvements. Several times, the HOA made attempts to have equipment towed or removed even though it was parked on my property. In February 2020, the wall was completed, which included lighting and security cameras and a large decorative iron gate at my main driveway. I also had a new driveway installed. Figured that a nice, clean, well-maintained wall would make the HOA happy. Nope. I did not mow the 5 feet of grass along the gate as well as the HOA would like. I also did not bag the grass clippings. The wall was the wrong color, and my wife chose sand as it was a neutral color, and the wall was too high. HOA laws are 4 feet max. Since the issue with the virus, this HOA has had way too much time. They started by repainting my wall and sending me the bill. They started removing and disabling my lights and security cameras and sending me the bill. And they have a company that dug up and resodded the 5-foot strip of grass to the HOA requirements and sent me the bill, which includes a year of maintenance. My attorney nearly laughed herself into a coma. The outcome: it did not take long. The HOA, its board of directors, and the companies they hired were all ordered to appear in court. After hearing all sides and seeing all documentation, the judge ruled. The company that painted the wall has 30 days to repaint it the color that it was. The company that disabled and removed the lights and security cameras have 30 days to return them to working order, and the grass is allowed to remain. The HOA was ordered to absorb all costs. This includes the work they ordered and all the work needed to return my property to the way I had it. Further, the judge ordered that the HOA, from now until eternity, is to have no contact with me or my family. Now, I am going to request a permit to build a rifle range on my property. The HOA fines me. We take this lawsuit to court and I'll make a fool out of them. Here's how. Click the video on your screen. You don't want to miss how on this one, and I'll see you there.